Hello, my name is Jacob Monk. Well, I'm a cultural sociologist here in Copenhagen, and beside that, I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'm a Russian agent. I'm trying to find out if I'm a Russian agent because there is a lot of McCarthyism around here in Denmark. Our foreign minister and other politicians here in Denmark, they are trying to close down the freedom of speech. That is, if you're saying something that can be interpreted as the standpoints of Russia, of Putin, then you're a Russian agent, and of course that's illegal. You will lose your job, maybe you'll go to jail. Well, this is the version of McCarthyism 2016 in the European Union in Denmark. We are talking about the freedom of the Nordic people. Well, the freedom of the Nordic people, I'm afraid that is a thing we had in the past. Now we are not the Nordic people. We are the German people. We are connected to Germany, to France, to Poland, three of the dominating states in the European Union, and none of them have freedom of speech. Why? Well, first of all, because they want to please the Jewish leadership in USA. Therefore, it is illegal to question about the Holocaust. And now it's beginning to be illegal to say anything that will give the benefit of disarmament of Russia, of Donald Trump, the new Russian agent in the leadership of the United States. And here I have a list of Russian websites. I suppose they are all quite illegal, or the Americans want them to be. They want to use NATO. NATO was created as a weapon of defense, a weapon of freedom. But today it's a weapon of repression, restriction of freedom of speech, attack against foreign nations. I will say Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, to mention a few. Millions of people have been killed because of this policy, and all kind of aggressive militaristic policy today is based on what is called Russophobia. Russophobia, the mental disease of being afraid of anything that comes from Russia. So if anything comes from Russia, you have to be against it. Well, here are some websites. They are all told to be Russian agent websites, but actually these 200 websites, I would say 99% of them, they are placed in the United States. They are made, upheld, financed and written by Americans and Europeans, not by Russians, but nevertheless they are told to be Russian agent websites, and that is because the enemy of freedom in USA, in Europe, they want to close down these websites. They want to close down all papers having the same viewpoints. They want to close down the freedom of speech of persons like myself, like Iben Tranholm, a Catholic journalist here from Copenhagen, and a lot of other people. Well, let's see let's see this list here. It is on my computer now, and I'll mention a few of these Russian websites. First, it's number 15. It's called Anti-War. It's an anti-militaristic website that has been running for years. I've had the pleasure of following it for many years, and it is absolutely against war, against militarism, against atomic weapons. No matter if these atomic weapons are placed in Russia or in all the bases that USA and NATO has placed all around Russia, America, they use 10 times as much money on military weapons as the Russians do. The Americans are the foremost producer of all kind of weaponry, and they are the most aggressive part in the world, trying to promote the psychology of war. So therefore they call this anti-war website a Russian propaganda website. But that's not true. It is run from USA. Well, let's continue. Now, Christians Fight Back. It's number 24. It's promoting evangelical Christianity. Well, this is called Russian disinformation. I'm sorry to hear that, because freedom of religion and freedom of speech, it is two parts of the same case, two sides of the same coin. Well, let's continue. Here is a website. Well, actually, it is run by one Russian. It is called Alexander Dugin. And then some people from Greece and Romania on Europe. It's called Katheon.com. It's a very interesting website writing about philosophy and about the history of Europe, seen from a Byzantine standpoint. I certainly don't agree with all what you can read on Katheon.com, but to call it Russian disinformation, that is absolutely stupid. Well, you could just as well call CNN American disinformation, but this is much more heavy intellectual stuff than CNN. And now let's move on. We come here to RT. Well, RT is the official Russian channel for information about international matters. It's Russian television. Most Russian television is made by American-speaking journalists. They are grown up as American. Actually, they are living in America, a lot of them. And others, they are living in Moscow, but they're coming from America. So this is called Russian disinformation. Well, you could just as well call the website of Pentagon for American disinformation, because of course the Russians have the right to say their opinions and to show the world as they see it. And I've been listening to RT, reading their website for years. I think it's one of the best informational websites in the world, some of the best television channels in the world. But I don't know anyone here in Denmark and in the rest of the Western world, any normal citizens that are following this channel. No matter what provider you've got of television here in Denmark, you won't be able to see RT. It is blocked. It's impossible for Danes to see RT. Therefore, no one knows RT. So I really can't see how it can be a Russian disinformation channel when no one looks at it. Well, let's keep on. Here we have Russian Insider. That is a magazine run by Americans. It is financed by people from all over the world who give contributions to this magazine. It's certainly not financed by Moscow state money, but the editors living in Moscow, yes, and that's a very good idea, because then they don't go to jail. You see, this McCarthyism tendency in the Western world, it has the consequence that exactly the same will happen as happened to the peace activists in America during McCarthyism in the 60s, 1960s. They went to jail and some of them were even killed. Therefore, it's a good idea to live in Moscow to keep yourself alive. Here we have South Front. It's an informational site talking about the Russians in East Ukraine. In East Ukraine there are living around 5 million Russians, and they don't want to be repressed by the Ukrainian people in the government, I would say the fascist government in Kiev. So therefore they want to be independent, and therefore they have been fighting. But this fight is not shown in any papers in the Western world. So they have their own website. They need to have that website. Here we have Sputnik News. It's an informational agency of Russia, the official information agency of Russia. Is that a Russian agent? Not at all. It's an official information agency of Russia. That's something else. And I could go on. Here we have the Duran. It's a very informational website. Plates in London, in England. And their editor is from England, and their journalists are from America and Europe. So I can't see how it can be Russian disinformation. And here we have the Saker IS. It's a website run by an American man who wants to tell about the need for disarmament. And last but not least, we have Fort Rush. It's websites about Russia, about all kind of information about Russia. And I can see also they have WikiLeaks.org and WikiLeaks.com. So WikiLeaks, that is seen as Russian disinformation. Well, the fact is that if you want to know anything at all, if you're critical about the German leadership of the European Union, if you're critical about the American militarism, if you're critical about the illegal American attack and destruction of Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, well, if you have the opinion that this world should be run by human rights and by every nation's right to be independent, not to be run from the USA or from Europe, then probably you are a Russian agent, according to the modern McCarthyist. And me, am I a Russian agent? Of course I am. Every reasonable man and woman in the Western world is a Russian agent. Why? Because you are not Russian agent if you have the same viewpoints as Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir Putin, he wants disarmament. He wants the American bases. They have more than 100 bases surrounding Russia and China. He wants them taken away so the danger of the Third World War will decrease. He wants peace between East and West. He wants to go against pollution. So if you have any of these standpoints, if you want nations to be independent, if you are against the war and the destruction of Libya, of Syria, and all these other countries that American imperialism, with the help of NATO, has been committing in the last 15 years, well, then you are Russian agents because you have the same viewpoints as the leadership of Russia.